It was a nasty divorce after being married for 12 years and building this amazing life where we could literally, with our combined income, buy anything, go anywhere, do anything, and had two dogs, two kids, a beautiful house that we built. Everything got flipped upside down. Uh, but I think I look back at it now and I say to myself, there were signs that it needed to be not destroyed the way it was destroyed. I wouldn't have preferred that, but there were signs that things need to change. I just wasn't listening to those signs. Signs would be that I was working a corporate 9 to 5 job, hated every minute of it, made a lot of money, but it just did not enjoy it one bit. I would buy things and then 5 minutes later regret the purchase. So there's like this black hole inside of me that was just filling it up with stuff, but nothing would make me satisfied.
Welcome to the Defining Moments podcast, where leaders, innovators, and everyday heroes share the moments that changed everything. These are the stories behind resilience, purpose, and legacy. Now, let's dive into today's defining moment.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melanie Warner, founder of Defining Moments Press. I'm the host of the Defining Moments podcast and the TV show, where we chat with authors, experts, corporate leaders, high-level coaches, and people who are turning their expertise into best-selling books, premium brands, and powerful media platforms. This episode is brought to you by Defining Moments Press. We are a US-based publishing company, and we help aspiring authors around the world to write, publish, and promote a nonfiction book to elevate their expertise, their brand, and create a meaningful impact and create profit in 8 weeks or less. An example of how we did that was one of our clients who did this. His name is Artie Viperla. I have his book around here somewhere. In fact, you can actually catch a podcast interview that I did with Artie here on this platform not too long ago. And Artie was a Vietnam vet. He was a psychologist by trade, and he was one of the first people to study PTSD and put it on the map as a Vietnam vet. And he was a high honors graduate from Harvard. He's a brilliant man. Artie is now 81 years young, and we helped him write his first book. It became a bestseller internationally. Now he lives in Costa Rica, and he's an amazing energy healer. He's part of our community. I talk to him daily. He's helped heal a lot of trauma in myself and my body, and it's something that I cannot wait to share with you. So that's just one example of somebody that we've helped. Another example is a special guest that I have here today. His name is Sanjay Raja. And what we're going to be talking about is the cost of playing small and the defining moment in Sanjay's life that forced him to start over. So Sanjay, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
No worries. I'm excited.
Yes. So most people, they don't change anything about their life. If their life is going south, or they say my life sucks, right? Most people don't change until staying the same becomes unbearable. And for you, that moment came back in 2018, and it cost you everything that was familiar to you. So share that with our audience. What was your defining
Yeah.
moment?
It was a nasty divorce after being married for 12 years and building this amazing life where we could literally, with our combined income, buy anything, go anywhere, do anything, and had two dogs, two kids, a beautiful house that we built. Everything got flipped upside down. Uh, but I think I look back at it now and I say to myself, there were signs that it needed to be not destroyed the way it was destroyed. I wouldn't have preferred that, but there are signs that things need to change. I just wasn't listening to those signs. Signs would be that I was working a corporate 9 to 5 job, hated every minute of it, made a lot of money, but it just did not enjoy it one bit. I would buy things and then 5 minutes later regret the purchase. So there's like this black hole inside of me that was just filling it up with stuff, but nothing would make me satisfied. And the only thing that really satisfied me was I would cook for my family. And I really enjoyed doing it, taking care of the kids. I loved being a full-time dad. And then I was acting at the time and doing great, actually, in acting at the time. I was booking everything. And then when the divorce hit, life happens for you, not to you. Took a long time to learn that lesson, but once I embraced that, it was the positive change I needed to have. So to stop thinking small and just trying to hold everything together for other people and really follow what I was meant to do on this earth.
Wow. So you were married, you had two kids, two dogs, you had this amazing life. From the outside, it looked great. You were an
Oh
actor on
yeah.
TV and movies. And some of you may recognize Sanjay from some of these projects and things that you did. And another thing I thought it was really interesting is you had this foresight. It's really when somebody's in a position in their life when they're really broke and they need to make money and they're an actor
Mhm.
and your agent comes to you and says, I have a Coca-Cola commercial for you and you turned it down. Why was that?
So I had the nutrition fitness company that I started in 2011, and it was small, but it was growing slowly and steadily. I hadn't really even written my book, my first book in health and wellness. There was no idea for a TV show. No one even thought of that. But I just knew intrinsically that this is going to go somewhere in the health and wellness space. And it was a SAG commercial. And for those who know, SAG is Screen Actors Guild commercial. So the residuals on a national commercial are huge. I'd still probably be getting paid from it today, right? And so my agent calls me and says, "Hey, we got two offers on the table. We got a movie that's a small budget film that's shooting in St. Petersburg, and we got a SAG commercial, same time." And she said, "Well, let me just tell the SAG people for the SAG commercial, let's give them a green light." And I said, "Give me a
Yeah,
day."
because your agent makes a commission. So those of you
Yeah.
that know, like your agent books a gig for you, the agent wants you to get the gig that's going to pay the most money. And
Yeah.
definitely Coca-Cola is going to pay way more money than this little low budget film.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I said, "Can we do both at first?" I actually did say, "Can we do both at first?" And she goes, "No, you got to do one or the other because there's a conflict. The directors are not going to allow you to change their schedule." And I said, "Fine." So I said, "Give me a day to think about it." And so I thought about it and I realized that the choice is not that hard. I know what I'm building towards. I just don't know what it is yet in health and wellness, but it's something there. And so I talked to my wife at the time and she's like, "Are you crazy?" And I said, "No, I just don't think it's the right move for us." And so I called my agent back. She was really upset with me, like really upset. And she goes, "You may never get something like this again." And I said, "I'm risking it. It is what it is. We're gonna let it go." I took the movie. The movie was a small, very low budget film, shot in St. Pete. And did the movie open doors down the road? Yes, it did. Were the doors as big as the ones that the Coke commercial have opened? No, they weren't. No, they weren't.
Do you still have that same agent?
I do. I do.
I bet you
Yeah.
she's thanking you now.
Yeah, I
Because
know.
what's interesting is that and a lot of people don't understand this stuff. And I was the same way when I was in my 20s. I had an agent. I used to be an actor and
Mhm.
I got offered Playboy and I got offered a
Mhm.
soap opera and some things that would have been probably led to a lot more things. And my agent was so mad, I'm sure, like always wanted to fire me because I kept saying, no, that's cheesy. I don't want to do that. And they're
Mhm.
thinking, do you know how hard this is? And the soap opera was like 10,000 a week. That's a lot
Yeah.
of money for anybody, even today's
Yeah.
dollars. And this was like 100 years ago. And
Yeah.
I could see why agents would push you to do soap operas because it's regular income for you and for them,
Hmm.
right? Because when you're an actor, you're dealing with rejection every day. You go out on
Yeah.
auditions. And, and if you're a member of the Screen Actors Guild, the union, they penalize you. You can't work non-union in some cities or, I mean, some states. I think Florida is a right to work state. So means you can
Yep.
work union or non-union, right?
Hmm.
That's brilliant. But like people in LA where I was, you can't do that. If you're in California,
Yeah.
you can't do union and non-union. So the unions penalize you if you work non-union, but like 97% of the people aren't getting any work, right? But if you do get
Yeah.
work, they protect you. So there's restrictions there. But what's interesting is your agent works on commission, usually 10 to
Hmm.
15%. Managers sometimes take a percentage, attorneys can take a percentage. So even if you're an actor and you make a ton of money, there's a lot of people that already have their hand out besides Uncle Sam taking their cut. So I was always amazed because my daughter's a professional actor, how,
Hmm.
she could make $20,000 an episode for TV and have like hardly any money left over in that world.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so you're seeing now this trend of like so many actors, especially really big names that aren't getting work like they used to because the industry is so fragmented And now they're creating their own opportunities. They're funding
Hmm.
their own shows. They're producing their own stuff. They're doing deals directly with content creators and distributors and exhibitors even. So it's a really interesting and exciting time in Hollywood. And Sanjay and I have partnered up and actually produced a TV show, which we're going to talk to you about that in just a little bit. But I want to step back for a second and go back to 2018. So number one, you had turned down this was earlier before that. You turned
Hmm.
down this massive opportunity for Coca-Cola because there was
Yeah.
something in your soul that said this doesn't align with my mission in the world. Even though you needed the money as an
Yeah.
actor, you were broke as a
Yeah.
joke, ready to choke.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your wife was like, you should have taken it. Your agent was like, you should have done it. But your gut
Yeah.
was like, listen to your gut. And I know someday I'm going to do something where this may not align. And I had the same situation in my early 20s when they offered me Playboy. And I said,
Hmm.
someday I'm going to do something that may not align with this. And I feel it in my bones to say no, even though everybody thought I was crazy. And it probably would have opened up a lot of doors in my acting world as well. Definitely. But same thing. I turned down a lot of things in my 20s because I didn't feel like they initially aligned with the bigger mission of my life. And now, decades later, I know looking back, that served me well. And I would say,
Hmm.
knowing you and knowing what you're doing now and how big your life has blown up into all these amazing things, it would be really weird to think of you doing a Coca-Cola commercial because it doesn't align with everything that you are today, right?
Yeah, integrity is in the entertainment industry is lacking severely. And I know actors who've compromised their values to take roles, and I get it. I'm not going to judge you for it. That's your decision. But for me, I built this big reputation over the years since 2011 in the health and wellness space. And the reason why I had longevity in that side was because I never sold anything to people based on fear mongering, which you see nowadays.
Yep.
It was rooted in truth and dispel a lot of notions. And when we got the show, before we got the show, PBS vetted me up and down for months. They went
Mm.
through everything. They went through all my background. They went through all my digital history. They wanted to make sure there was not controversial stuff on social media.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's what people don't understand is that before they give you a show and they greenlight you, they're going to vet you up and down because they have a brand to maintain. And I cannot
And you're going to
compromise that
be
brand.
under this giant microscope, right?
Yeah.
And I think about that too, because when you are on like CNN or PBS or on one of these big platforms, now
Mhm.
you have the same credibility as that brand. So
Yeah.
they're extremely protective, and the whole industry is designed to keep people out, first of all. But I
Yeah.
think what's interesting is I saw something recently where there was somebody on a reality show. It was one of those like Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, right? And
Uh-huh.
they were talking about their Mormon religion and their beliefs. And this sponsor came up and offered to pay one of them $20,000 to sell like sex toys. And I watched how quickly she unraveled and justified her
Yeah.
change of thought and even had a conversation with, I think, her mother about it, saying,
Oh
well,
my God.
and I saw in real time how somebody would completely change their whole values and morals and this is the price that it was only 20 grand for that manufacturer
Mhm.
to get somebody to change their entire core beliefs over a product, which I thought was
Yeah.
hilarious. And so you're right. We don't have those. This is where we have a trust recession. We have all these leaders out there that nobody trusts. And one of the things that I admire about you, Sanjay, so much that people don't know this about you yet, is when you do look at a product or you are very picky. You don't endorse anything because there have been, as your producer of your PBS TV show, I will tell you,
Mhm.
I have brought many sponsors to your show and you have turned them down and said, this is not in alignment with me. I don't agree with their ingredients. I'm not
Yeah.
going to endorse this to the audience. And as much as we needed those sponsors to help fund our show, I always trusted your integrity because of that decision that you had not to partner with somebody like Coca-Cola, right?
Yeah. it's such an interesting world once we got the first season off the ground, then season two rolled in, and then you being a integral part of the show, being an executive producer, you brought so many opportunities. And I felt bad saying no because you did a lot of work, but it just it just I'm looking at where we're going to be in 5 years with the show,
Yeah. And
right?
and
You
it
know,
but here's the thing, when you have a show, whether it's a podcast, a TV show, and you look at some of these other famous influencers and stuff out there, the minute you sacrifice your integrity, your audience can feel it a mile away. And they immediately
yeah.
tune out, they turn off, and they don't want anything to do with you. So to me, your integrity and your authenticity is the new currency in that space. And you
Well, you
have to
see so
be
many
clear.
influencers, right, on now social media influencers that have been bought and sold multiple
Yep.
times.
Yeah.
And guess what happens? There was this big influx of the influencer market taking over Hollywood, but they found out it's a supernova. It burns brightly for a second, really brightly, but then it fades away very quickly because they don't build it on trust. They build it on sensationalism, fear mongering. One guy got on there to say water's horrible for you. I mean, just this whole thing on that. I mean, just nonsense out there, and they're looking for eyeballs. So you can get eyeballs, I'm sure, by saying ridiculous things. However, it's not going to last. And so we wanted longevity. Where we started on PBS, number one, because they have credibility, production quality is great, and they've got a built-in audience. And that's what people respect about PBS, and that's why they've been a household name. That that stint on PBS, our season one was our test bed. Then season two came. Then we got noticed by streaming channels, so they came knocking, and so then we got noticed that way. So I know one of the things, the reason why our team is so good is we've got Michael, the director, who's just always keeping us moving forward because he's like, we can't do the same thing as we did in season one. Got to be different.
You
So he
got to
keeps me in
keep
check.
elevating. Yeah, keep
Yeah,
elevating. Yep.
yeah.
And
And
Michael's
then we've got
amazing. Michael Mayer, he's, been
yeah.
awesome, awesome, awesome.
And then we got you, who's always thinking of new ways to kind of elevate the show and just always thinking outside the box and always saying we should try this, this, and this, which is what you need. We need to
Yeah,
progress forward and flip the script on everything that everybody else is doing.
yeah.
Right. So we did a lot of things that no other show did. And we got pushback from PBS. We got pushback from all these people. But guess what? It worked.
Right.
We
And
made it
here's the
happen.
thing. When we first started pitching this TV show to different networks, I know this show has had a long history of trying to get made for a long time. It was with the Discovery Channel, right?
Well, yeah, Discovery Channel bought it was ready to go because Discovery owned Travel Channel, and we were going to be on Travel Channel when all the cooking shows were there. But then Discovery said we're going to go all paranormal, so now Travel Channel is all ghost stories and stuff. So they axed everything.
Yeah.
And then Netflix came calling, and we took a meeting with them. They offered a good deal, but here's the problem: it was going to be all paid with pharmaceutical money.
Yeah.
And then the other issue was they maintain creative control. Those are the two things I was not willing to compromise on. And
Mhm.
and I didn't know you then, but having
Yeah.
Michael on board, we looked at each other and said, yeah, let's not do it. So we walked away.
Well, and Michael May is brilliant. He's actually produced several different movies, television shows, even documentaries. He has an
Mhm.
amazing podcast himself. He's just a super talented guy. He's won several Emmys. So, like, I love partnering with really brilliant, creative people. And it's funny, out of all the projects I've done over the years, I think this one we had such a small crew, and it was just like
Yeah,
we all just have respect for each other to just get stuff done. And everybody stayed in their lane of expertise and zone of genius, and it just got done really quickly. And what's
good.
cool is we initially, when this went to networks, it was like the networks were thinking, "Oh, this is great. We would love to do this show." But guess what? Think about this. Who are the only people that can advertise on national TV? Big Pharma,
Karma.
Taco
Yeah.
Bell, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, everything that a health and wellness show doesn't stand for. So
Yeah.
when we all fought the same common enemy. We're like, okay, we want to educate people and go against what big pharma, big hospitals, and big food companies are telling people because all the three of them are in bed together and everybody knows it. And
Yeah.
and yet why would we go to a network that only wants us to give that content that's filtered for their sponsors? Because that's what funds it. So then we said, what if we got a creative new way to fund a TV show where we could align with sponsors and sell it directly, where we're not in a space where we have to sell commercial television spots in order to fund it.
Mhm.
So that's where it came down to partnering with PBS, which worked out so amazingly well. So tell us more about that experience and what that was like to get that off the ground. And what did it feel like to be an
Oh,
artist who
yeah.
has had this big dream and vision? We call it a big, hairy, audacious goal for so many years in your life to finally get it off the ground.
Well, there were still so many challenges we had to overcome. So, for example, what people don't understand and how PBS works is that it's not just they take any good idea. They don't just do that. So, what they did was they said, all right, go fund your show, go make it happen. And three things are going to happen. We're going to send it off to the number one, two, and three media markets, which is LA, New York, and Chicago. Those affiliates tell the smaller affiliates yes, no, or there's nothing here at all. So Jerry is our guy that we worked with at PBS, and he sent it off, and he said three outcomes could come. You spend all this money, this time and effort. They don't like it. Bye. And they show you the door. Second outcome would be, oh, we like it, but it's a limited series. We don't see it running more than one season. Okay. Or the third option is they loved it. The test audience really resonated with it. Here's your time slot. Now go make content. So we got the third option. And we didn't know. We had no idea it was going to be that option. We just knew the content was good enough where it resonated with us. And I think where creatives and filmmakers and content creators get in trouble is don't make what you think the audience wants to see. Make what you want to make for yourself. And then the audience will attach itself to it. And we did that. So we stuck to it. We got it off the ground and they love it. And so they just keep asking us for more content. And so we're in post for season two, which is going to come out in June, pre-production for season three. So there's just so many things going on. We never thought, well, I can't say we never thought. I just didn't think it got the traction it would in such a short amount of time.
Well, yeah, and I think it's because it's something that was really needed. And I
Hmm.
feel like there's a lot of people that are sitting in their glass towers in Hollywood that have no clue what the audience actually wants. And they feel like they're taking risk on certain things, but they don't really have like their finger on the pulse sometimes. And I think
Yeah.
if you're in touch with the audience, right? Like you were already talking to people, you already had your book out there,
Hmm.
but here you were now post-divorce, right? Which, by the
Yeah.
way, was a big transition,
Yeah.
where something kind of
Yeah.
broke inside you, and you're like, I can't keep living this. I can't keep living like this. And you realize that you were playing small, um, to create stability for others. And I see this a
Hmm.
lot. People shrink their dream to fit their income. They have these goals and dreams, but they stay in a safe zone and they don't take a risk. And so for you, that meant, changing everything, all your whole identity as being this married family and having all these dreams together. And then everything shifted and it became this contentious place. And now, here you are on the other side of that. Your kids are incredible. I've met them. They're amazing humans. I love them. They're
Hmm.
great. And you take them and you travel with them, right?
Hmm.
Like we all went to Bali last year. That was
Yeah.
magical to go to Bali,
Yeah.
and in fact, Sue Van Rays is actually was in that episode, and she and
Yeah.
I did a podcast as well. So you can go find that one too, because that was amazing. And you see like how powerful it is to create platforms where other people get to share their zone of genius with the world, like the
Hmm.
best kept secrets. Like the people that we featured on the show I have learned so much from you, from them. And it's
Hmm.
and being in these beautiful environments like Bali and then Costa Rica, it's just like season two is so beautiful. I cannot wait for this to come out for you guys to see everything that it means. Well,
We've been doing the voiceovers and the dailies. I see the rough cuts, and there's just not a bad shot. It looks so much grander and bolder and bigger than from season one. So we really elevated still on a very small budget. We were able to make that happen. So yeah, it was
yeah.
amazing.
And what's cool is we found a really unique model where we were able to create a sponsorship model because with PBS, you have to have sponsors for your show because there's not commercials where you would get like
Mhm.
advertising revenue split like you would with another traditional TV show. Or there's a way where if you're a producer, sometimes you go get funding and then you go produce the show and you go sell it to a network, right? So we did it differently
Mhm.
where we created a sponsorship opportunity where we could elevate some of our existing clients that were already experts in that space. Maybe they were authors or speakers or thought leaders. And so this just created an opportunity and a unique way to fund it, but also find the right partners and sponsors that were in alignment with the message already, that wanted to support the content on PBS. And then when these people are featured on one of the shows or when they're if they're an underwriting sponsor for an episode, now they get the benefit of being on PBS, which is 240
Mhm.
million households. That's huge, right? So there's a
Yeah.
unique business model and sponsorship level that worked very well. And for PBS, this has worked great because they came back to us and said, "Can you do this for all of our shows?" Because it was like they're losing a lot of their
Yeah.
funding too, right? So this is a unique
Well,
model.
we're in such a different world right now. So the Center for Public Broadcasting was basically dismantled by the current administration, and they funneled funds, government funds, to subsidize the smaller affiliates and our favorite TV shows. So that
Yeah,
was
like
shut down.
Sesame Street and all that that was on PBS for years.
Yeah. So what happened was when we did our model, we presented it to PBS. They threw a lot of questions at us. They said, "We don't know about this. This is very different, very unique." But guess what? Our model is now the standard
Hmm.
because of that happening. Now they have to have fully funded content to come in to their platform. They give the audience, they give you the credibility, but you got to bring in the content. And the goal is that your content is good enough, you get enough eyeballs, you get enough viewership that other platforms are going to see you and say, "We really like this." And
Yes.
so slow and steady leads the way. The problem I'm seeing with a lot of content creators is I need this right out of the gate. I need to get paid right out of the gate. It is a slow burn if you want longevity. It really is because the whole model of the industry has completely shifted. And so we
Yeah.
just have to evolve with it. And we were actually ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. And we found a solution for ourselves that worked for us, not ever thinking that this is something that lots of people would be using. And so we created this model and it's exciting for like filmmakers and content producers because it's a way to actually fund your projects. And also as a producer, I love being able to help people find like guaranteed distribution before they start their projects so that they can actually get the funding and complete them because that's really what's been missing in a lot of these studio environments. And since all of that is also breaking up, we found a way to create this and kind of cut out the middleman because these
Mhm.
distributors were taking a lot of money. The same way in the book space, the same way that
Mhm.
Amazon disrupted the book industry, where you don't need a major publisher to publish your book. You can self-publish and fund it yourself and distribute it and market it. Now that's happening in the TV space and the film space. And it is a very exciting time to be a filmmaker. So if you're in that space as well, then we would love to talk to you more about, how we can help support the same vision for you. I want to take a sec to go back to Sanjay, who was, you had also written a book
Mhm.
and you were getting a little bit of traction with the book, and the book was kind of a foundation for this. Tell us more about that journey as well.
Yeah, so I started the idea for the book in 2017. It was being a like when I had my kids, I said to myself, I'm not going to let them go through all the eating issues I had, which is obesity and all this stuff. I wanted to start them off really on the correct foot. So I took charge of it and basically made all their baby food and just had them go on this journey with me where they're not afraid to eat anything. So we took them to so many different countries and they'll eat anything. I can drop them anywhere, they'll be just fine. And so I was dispelling the myth of the picky eater, which is what we hear all the time. And I would do a lot of, then I got picked up to do some speeches for free before I became a known speaker. And I would always say something that would piss off the entire audience, which was, listen, you're not born a picky eater. It's a learned behavior. You're allowing this behavior. And it would just rattle so many people's cages. And it was a good thing because then we're having honest conversations. So
Yeah.
the book got written and then it got published in 2018. And that's Discovery saw that book and gave us, the first offer, which didn't go through, which is okay. And then, but the book led to me getting on podcasts. Then the book also led me to getting on stages for free initially, and then now getting paid to be a speaker. And so it
And it
grew into
gave
this
you
entire thing.
and it gave you expertise and authority instantly as credibility as a thought leader in that space of wellness, which
Mhm.
I thought was interesting. And then, so to
Yeah.
monetize the back end of the book, you were doing fitness, right? You were getting up early, right? You were training fitness people like one on one. That's exhausting
Yeah.
too. But tell us what, so because you had the book, that led to an authority. And then you
Yeah.
kind of expanded that to like an offer where you were doing one on one fitness coaching with people, right?
Well, I never leveraged the book enough, honestly. Knowing what I know now, knowing you and what you do,
Yeah, because
I
I
would
just
have.
full disclosure, you guys, he wrote this book outside of our company. We
Yeah.
didn't publish that book,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he just wrote it and got some authority and got some traction. And then we met, and he
Yeah.
was able to take all of that and just explode it within a very short amount of time. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I was a trainer. The good news is I was training higher level athletes by the time it was like 2022, 2023. So I was training higher level athletes. So I was getting a lot of traction, but I was working out. And one of the things about me as a trainer is I work out with all my clients. So I was getting 8 workouts in a day, and I was a wreck completely. So that being said, I couldn't maintain that pace anymore, so I have to be more intelligent about how I go about things. And so the book then slowly made its way to PBS. Somebody got it, and then our contact got a hold of it, called us up, and I called up Michael. Him and I were doing our own projects, but we always kept this on the back burner. And I said, "Hey, they gave us the green light. Let's go do this thing." And he's like, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, we're they
And then
they
you
want
came
it."
to me, and then you came to me, and because you had Michael and you had your book and you had guaranteed distribution with PBS, then I was
Yeah.
able to go and help fund that with just our
Yes.
own experts in our sphere of influence, because we had thought leaders and best-selling authors and speakers that were already in that wellness space. So we then
Hmm.
collaborated and helped use all of that to fund this project, which was so exciting. Now let's flash forward to what's happened since. Before this, you were living in an apartment, divorced with your kids. You were
Yeah.
made you I was telling you when the first time we ever spoke, you said something to me that still stands out. Okay. And this is if you
Yeah.
want to know how to get your own TV show, you tell a producer
Yeah.
something like this. You
Mm.
said, Americans have the most expensive urine on the planet. I'll
Yeah.
never forget that. And I still say that to people and they laugh. And this is where you had such conviction, like you're not a big fan of supplements, you're no
Mhm.
nonsense, you're a straight shooter. I learned so much from that conversation. I'm like, this guy needs his own show. So then we started talking about how you had this concept and here's where you were, and you were stuck with this piece that I knew I could
Mhm.
provide that piece.
Yeah.
If there was enough evidence that that show could succeed. And what's so cool is since then, you went from divorced dad living in an apartment with two kids, doing these one on one, getting up at the butt crack of
3 a.m.
dawn, like
Yeah.
3
Way
a.m.
too
to
early.
have time before, I'm like, you're not
Yeah.
charging enough. And then you were just charging a few $1,000s for being a speaker. And I'm like, but you're this
Yeah.
expert authority. You wrote a book. You're not charging enough there either. So you went from charging a few $1,000s doing one on one clients. Now that the show came out and you leverage the PBS brand and the
Mhm.
collaborations, it has elevated your book, your authority, your fees. Now you went from a few $1,000s to $100,000 corporate speaking engagements, right? Corporate wellness packages,
Mhm.
getting booked like crazy as an actor, TV, movies, billboards. I crack up seeing I'm driving in Dallas and I look up and I see you on a
Yeah.
billboard. And then
Yeah.
I'm in another city. I don't remember if it's New York, and you're on
Yeah.
another billboard as a
Yeah.
doctor, which cracked me up. And I was like, I never realized those aren't real doctors on a billboard. I didn't
No,
know
I
they were
moonlight as a
actors.
doctor in my spare time. So it's all good.
I know. So you're not even a doctor, but
Yeah.
you have at least by tenfold increased your own income and expertise and authority and credibility by utilizing a book your expertise and the PBS brand, like having your own TV show.
Mm.
Now, the other thing that came from that is we found that speaking engagements, people want people that have been on PBS and they're willing
Yeah.
to pay more because you are endorsed, like you're as seen on PBS, as seen on NBC. All of those things mean more in the marketplace. Then you become the go-to expert. So here's what happens when journalists are looking for a source, they look for people that wrote a book on the subject because now they're saying this person is the expert. And you're more likely to get booked as a media source or on certain stages because you've written a book and because now you're on PBS. So you have elevated yourself in a very short amount of time. And now you're living on the beach in this beautiful house with your kids. Like your whole life has changed completely in that last year and a half.
Yeah, it's funny how things come together. I think it was, you one of the things I've embraced is that nobody is self-made. You need help along the journey, no matter what you do, who you are. I don't believe in the self-made person. Somebody gave you help. That's the only way to do it. And so, like Michael saw the vision early on. We were connected for our backstory so crazy. I had a phone relationship with Michael for 7 years before we were in the same room together. We never even met for 7 years, but he believed in it. And then you and I met, and then all three of us really put it together, put our head down, said we can do this while running our own separate businesses, while taking care of family, while doing all these other millions of things. But we all believed in the vision. And because of what we've been doing, you've expanded out, I've expanded out, Michael's expanded out. And it's just this effect of multiplication, of abundance, because we all kept that same mindset: make the content good, serve the public, and everything else will come. And that's exactly what happened. But it's hard for people to see that.
Yes, because in the beginning, right, there's a lot of rejection, right? And you
Hmm.
talk about how failure or rejection can be a redirect. When you're an actor, I mean, you're basically going on job interviews every single day. I mean, how do you deal with that headspace of rejection? And can you give me a specific time where like failure actually redirected your life in a better direction?
So I've had a unique background because I started my life in sales. I was a sales guy for a very long time. And anybody who's been in sales is that you're going to get hit with rejection every day,
Yeah, you got
right?
to keep your head straight for sure.
You got to keep your head straight. And so what happened is that gave me a leg up. I didn't realize how much of an advantage I had is that I could take rejection and just turn it into something positive. I know so many actors who take it so personally, right? But
Yeah.
I talked to what happened was on social media. I'm not a big social media guy, but I'm learning the trade, how to do it. And there was a guy who I forgot his name. His name is Dave Metzler. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's big into it. He was a $1 billion hedge fund guy, lost everything, came back and got it, close to where he was. So he reached out to me and him and I had a conversation and he told me something that stuck with me that really helped me. And I've shared with so many people, I think will help this audience, which is if you think about it this way, if whether you're an actor, TV show, you're getting closed doors or whatever it may be. He said, okay, if I were to tell you you had to get 1,000 no's before you get your first yes, how fast would you go and get that first no? And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to roll through 1,000 no's just to get to that yes. I know I'm going to get that yes, right? And so what people don't understand is that every no is leading up to that yes.
Yes. And when you can
It's
put a
totally
monetary
redirecting you.
value on that, right? Like you say, okay, how many no's can I get today? So
Yeah,
that I know that if I get 50 no's, that's going to be one yes or something.
yeah.
So it sounds like you were able to stop taking rejection personally and you found a way to use it strategically.
Hmm.
What's
Yeah.
a
It
what's a
actually
what's
empowered me.
a so give me an example of what's a no at the time that felt devastating, but now you're grateful for?
Oh, yeah. So perfect example would
Besides the
be
Coca-Cola thing we talked about, but
okay. And so I still think about this one. Me and the kids talk about this one all the time, which is, the movie Venom,
mhm.
right? Okay. Tom Hardy's in it. It came down to me and one other guy who they cast as the main villain. I went through 6 auditions for this thing. It came down to me and him. Now, the guy who got the role, his name is Riz Ahmed. He's a well-known actor. He's won an Academy Award. He's a big deal. Great. The
He is your
reason why they,
career.
oh yeah, it changed his career a lot of ways. And I'll tell you what happened is I found out the backdoor information. You never find this stuff out as an actor, but I found out. I'm 6'2". He is about 5'9". Tom Hardy, who's the main actor in that movie, is a little bit taller than Riz Ahmed. A couple things worked against me. Number one, I was taller than most of the people on set. They don't like that. That's number one.
Especially the leading men that are all pretty short.
Yes. Yeah. So they don't like that. Okay. And then what happened is that I got passed over for that. Then they said, okay, now we've got a co-star guy who's like the evil henchman scientist to Riz Ahmed, right? And it's an older white guy. They casted as that scientist. Then they looked at me again. They said, okay, but you're still taller than Riz Ahmed and you're the same skin color. So we can't have that. Right. So these are all the decisions that got made in the background. My agent was like, they like you. They like you. I did 6 auditions for these people and I never got it. And
Wow.
then that guy got it. It changed the trajectory of his life. But here's the thing. I look at that and go, if I would have done that, I would have never even thought about doing all this hard work to get the show off the ground.
And I think of the people that are literally alive today, Sanjay, because of you. I mean, honestly, but when anyone in my family gets sick, I call you before I call a doctor. And you have helped us heal so many different things. My son's knee, but when he was playing
Mhm.
basketball and he was in
Yeah.
an amazing season of undefeated season and he wanted to play. And it was like you gave us such great advice on that, even telling us what type of equipment to have to help it heal faster. Like I'm just amazed at what you've been able to do. And I know you made the right decision because the impact of what you're making, the real thing at the end of life that matters of the people that you've impacted are far greater where you're at now in this wellness
Mhm.
space than having been a major actor. And
Well, yeah, and it comes back around though. That's the thing. You never know what's going to come back around. So the interesting part
yeah.
was I just finished a movie earlier this year, which is going to it's called Emma's Christmas. It's going to come out in theaters at the end of this year. And what happened is that director was looking for my role, and he actually had cast another actor. That actor knew about me, referred me to him, said he's a better choice. I sat
That
down
never
with him.
happens with actors ever.
Yeah, that never happens, right? And he sat down with me. The director sat down. He looked at my stuff and he said, "Yeah, your cast is the role." He gave me the role, and then I just got a call back from him probably like 2 weeks ago. He's like, "Hey, I'm looking at the dailies." He goes, "You're really shining on this thing," and we got greenlit for part two. And they wrote a much bigger part for me in part two, which we're going to start filming probably end of this year. It's going to be all over the world, so we're going to be filming in 3 different countries, and you never know; it just comes back around.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. I'm just remembering this story. This is coming back to me now too. So I had a very good friend named Alicia, and
Hmm.
she actually lives in Switzerland. She's beautiful, amazing. She was a model and an actress, right? And back in the day, we met on the Baywatch set because we were both on Baywatch
Mm.
back 100 years ago. And we became like such close friends, like soul sisters. And she ended up being the maid of honor in my wedding when I got married 100 years ago. And she was up for a really big part in a big movie with Sylvester Stallone. And she's a model,
Mm.
so she was really tall. And same thing, they actually started, she got the role, she was gonna start filming, and they realized she was like this much taller than Sylvester Stallone. So,
Yeah.
and they ended up going and hiring a woman, an actress that was unknown that looked just like her. And
Yeah.
her name was Sandra Bullock.
Oh, there you go. There you
And
go.
I always say Sandra Bullock owes you her career. Sandra
Yeah.
Bullock doesn't even know this. Sorry, Sandra. You're amazing. I
Yeah.
love you so much. But it was because she looked like her. She'd already been cast in the role
Hmm.
first, like to fill that position. And everybody loved her look and everything, but she was so much taller. So, and that's the thing, you guys, if you're an actor or you're in the creative space, sometimes we internalize this rejection as like something's wrong with us. And
Hmm.
I remember like years ago, I got totally rejected for this is laughable now, but I was so devastated. I went in and I was applying to work at Six Flags. And
Okay.
I had to sing show tunes and I sang Oh Oklahoma, you know. And
Right.
And I was so proud of myself because I worked so hard and I really, really wanted this audition. And I had to fit into this costume. And later I didn't get the role and I was just devastated. And I found out it was because I was too tall for the costume. That was it.
Yeah.
But I
Yep.
didn't know that. And so I literally stopped singing. I stopped pursuing that career because I felt so rejected and it made me stop using my voice.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that I hope that all of you listening to this are so inspired by this conversation because we're like, Sanjay and I, we've been around the block with this. We've spent decades in this industry. And when you're an entrepreneur, when you're in sales, when you're
Hmm.
an actor, like we are a glutton for punishment because we deal with rejection daily. But
Yeah.
those things, when we were younger, really positioned us to be here in this space of being like learning not to quit
Yeah.
on this big goal and this big dream. And it just like all of these things, your gut, your choices, when everybody thinks you're crazy for saying no to something that you don't feel like is aligned with your own integrity, you've got to trust that because everybody knows the line that they're willing to draw in the sand, right? And you have to decide before you go out there, what is that line for you? And especially if you're going to go to Hollywood, you better decide before you get there because you're going to be in positions constantly where you're going to have to make decisions. And if you say yes to one thing, it means you're going to say no to something else. Like Sanjay gave a classic example. I could do this
Yeah.
commercial or this little movie. And I
Yeah.
have these conversations with my daughter who's on the front lines of this business every day as a professional actor. And it is so hard to know because you just never know. Like you see, especially you see that guy's career take off and he won an Academy Award, and like you're just like, this is insane. But
Hmm.
now you can look backwards and connect the dots and see that you are exactly where you're meant to be. Your kids
Yeah.
are happy and healthy. You're living
Yeah.
your best life. You're doing all these things you've dreamed of doing, and you've found a way to create both impact and income in the world. And I can't think of a better place to be.
Well, the other piece of the pie, I mean, the other piece of the puzzle in this conversation is not only not giving up, but when we go back to that 2018, I also had the mindset of I don't care what anybody's going to think about what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to go do it.
Hmm.
It's because being in entertainment or in any industry, for the most part, it's subjective. Everybody's going to have an opinion about something. You could do something really well, and somebody's going to say, "Oh, this is horrible," or somebody's going to
Yeah,
say, "Oh, this is great," right? So when I put down the thoughts of what are people going to think, at the end of the day, we are in this planet for a blip.
yeah,
And I am not going to live my life by other people's judgments. I'm going to go do that big giant thing that I want to do. And most of the time, their judgment on you is you're pointing out what they could not do, which
exactly.
is go live a big life.
And,
So that's the other piece of it.
and I think too, I mean, you look at where you started, like as a kid, you grew up, your parents, came from India. They had a different
Hmm.
idea of food and nutrition. And I remember you telling me, like, when you were a kid and you were upset, like your parents didn't give you ice cream and candy. They gave you like nuts. They gave you something healthy. But you
Yeah, yeah, they
also
did.
struggled with obesity as a kid. And you mentioned
Hmm.
that stress kind of showed up physically. What was your body
Yeah.
trying to tell you at that time? And like, how were you able to shift that?
Yeah. So what happened was when the divorce hit finally, um, I would get calls by lawyers all the time. My lawyer, her lawyer, I would get into full on panic attacks. Like my heart rate would jump up, it would skyrocket. I couldn't breathe. And it got so bad, it exacerbated. I had an ulcer that got really bad, exacerbated so many things inside of me. But instead of internalizing it even further, I took a step back and it took a long time to get here. And it was okay, when something bad happens, the first thing I need to do is just breathe. I just got to breathe. I started breathing, breathing, relaxing my mind, my body. And then what I realized is that the worst thing in my mind that could possibly happen to me was this perfect little world was going to be blown up, right? And it did. It blew up. But guess what? I survived.
Yeah.
I survived it. I thought that was going to be the end of me. I really did. I survived it. And now everything else that's coming my way, it's okay. I survived the worst thing. So I'm going to survive everything else. And so many times we think, oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. So that anxiety kicks in because we imagine scenarios. 90% of the stuff we imagine in our head doesn't even come to pass. It just
Oh,
is stuff
yeah.
we imagine.
My dad, it's funny, the very first podcast episode I did was with my dad. I love my dad. He's
Yeah.
amazing. He's 89 years young. He's so fascinating as a human. But he always said to me growing up, some of the worst things in my life never happened to me.
Yeah.
And and he's an attorney, and people would say, "Well, I almost had this happen." And he goes, "Well, then you almost had a lawsuit, but it didn't happen. So don't stress about
Exactly.
it." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we sit here and obsess, especially, gosh, once you have parents, like you have a whole new level of worry, right?
Hmm.
And we worry about all these things, but like worry is almost like a mantra, like negative prayer. And if you just keep focusing on that worry and that fear, then you're actually going to produce this outcome of something happening because you have such power to manifest things in your life. Why not focus on some positive things happening instead of using worry, which has absolutely no purpose in our lives but to hold us back and create fear?
Well, the other thing is when you think about it, think about the people who've changed the world, right? Most of the people, if not all of them, didn't have a comfortable life,
You're right. You're
right? They
absolutely
just didn't
right.
have a comfortable life. However you feel about Elon Musk, he changed the world in so many ways. You look at his past, he was bullied as a kid, all these things happened to him. You think about all these people who are change makers, you've talked about this in the past, and it's not by being comfortable do you do big things. And so what happens is the trap is we get comfortable and we're like, oh, everything's great. I don't have to evolve. I don't have to grow. So ease and comfort kills progress and growth every single time.
So true.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And the
So I
enemy
look
of
at, oh, go
the
ahead, please.
the enemy of wealth is delay. It's saying
Yeah.
someday. And I see this every
Yep.
day in our world where people, someday I'm going to write a book. Someday I
Yeah.
want to be an actor. Someday I want to be on a TV show.
Hmm.
Someday is not a deadline. And we can get so stuck in the dream of pursuing the dream of our life that we forget to actually make it a concrete goal and have executable steps and take the action on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like I look now and that is my job is not only to like change the world in terms of health and wellness and make a world a better place than I found it, but it's to be a role model for my kids to show them, hey, listen, it's a running joke in my house, which is what career are you on now? I'm on number 67. I don't know, right?
Well, and the
It's
greatest gift you can give your kids is your own happiness.
yeah,
Right. And so, and
yeah,
like, and here's the thing that I learned after my divorce. You know, you think that you think that your kids are gonna learn to love themselves based on how much you love them. Like if you just love your kids, they're gonna love themselves. But the truth is they look at you and your life, they
yeah,
see your disciplines, they see your habits, they see how you take care of yourself, and that's what they learn. And they learn
yeah,
that dad has what it takes to get through a tough divorce and go for his dream of and have this unstable thing happen and now come back and be the stable provider for them. Like, and that they have that in them as well. So you're
yeah,
actually showing and teaching your own kids resilience through this process, which is you're demonstrating it, which is amazing.
yeah. It's they're at that age. They're 14 now, where they are
And they're
watching,
twins.
listening. Yeah, they're twins. Yeah, and they're watching, they're learning. They've noticed everything I've ever done.
Yeah.
As long as they've been alive, they're always watching and cataloging these things. They'll call me out on my BS sometimes too. They'll do it. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you can't do that." I'm like,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah.
sorry."
Especially your
Okay,
daughter. She's the
okay.
best.
Yeah.
Now, now
She
you've
kind of
had
runs the house,
Yeah,
essentially.
so you've had multiple careers, producer, host, actor, fitness
Yeah.
coach, and you said like they even make fun of you, like, what are you doing now? But
Yeah.
what is the through line that connects all of them?
The through line that connects all of them is that I've always wanted to be in a space where my I could focus on my own personal health. So being a performance coach, being a personal trainer, being a nutritionist, being in the health and wellness space, I always wanted to be a job where I get paid to focus on living my best life, right? It was that. It was how do I live a life? Because I worked in corporate America and I took home a paycheck. It was great. But the problem was I wasn't changing the world for the better. I wasn't making the world a better place. I was making a company richer. And I had the self awareness to go, I want to do something that really impacts people on a deeper level. And the third thing was having the self awareness to know I am not built to work for anybody. I also realized that too, which is I look back at a conversation with a friend over dinner last night. And that is, I remember in every corporate job, they try to promote me every single time to manager. And I always said no. They're like, oh, it's no more money, blah, blah. But intrinsically, I knew deep down, this is just a pit stop for me. This is not my final destination. So I intrinsically knew I was training myself for something bigger and better, and that was to be my own boss. And as a child, one of the things my dad did that was amazing that I said I'm going to do for my kids, which is he pulled us out of the eighth grade and we traveled to the world for 9 months, pulling us out of the eighth grade. We had to make up the entire school year in the summer, my sister and I. And I said to him, I said, how are you able to pull this off? He goes, I work for myself. That's how. He quit his corporate job. That's where I got it from. And so then I said, I'm going to do that with my kids, where I can just take off and go do this thing. And so those are kind of all the little factors in my life that kind of influenced me to say, go down this path. And I think about it now, and that is, look at the economy we're in right now. It's not a good place right now. Bad economy, good economy. People are always, ebbs and flows in corporate America. And what I realized was in a good economy or bad economy, there's three things people always gravitate towards. Number one is food. Always going to be present. People want to eat, see good food. Number two, they will invest in their health and wellness. Always. And the third thing is, especially in a bad economy, during COVID, think about all the content that came out. Everybody wants to be entertained. So those three things I knew I had to have my feet in. So that's why everything just kind of worked together in a roundabout way. It's never a straight line, but we got there slowly.
So, where do you see people in your industry staying stuck, and why do they stay there?
Because they're looking for other people to give them an opportunity.
Or validation externally.
Yeah, and that's the problem I saw was that if you do I call it the lottery, when you're auditioning, it's literally a lottery. You have better chances of winning $1 million at your scratch 'em off ticket at the gas station than you do landing a big part that you really want. That's how much the odds are stacked against you. I did during pilot season when the industry was really doing well, 16 auditions a week.
Wow.
And I'd land 0.5% of them. Like, how can you carve out a living doing that? Right?
Yeah, it doesn't sound sustainable. And I know because I used to do it, and it's a lot of stress.
Yeah.
So,
And so there, I just saw another podcast where these B-level actors that you see in every single movie, right? You don't know their names, but they're always there. They can't pay their rent. They can't pay their mortgage because those roles are not there anymore. The industry has shifted so much now that A-list actors you see on TV commercials, they used to not do that anymore.
no, when you start to see an A-list actor doing diaper commercials, you know the industry's
Yes,
in trouble.
because brands realizing that is we can't put money on unknown quantity where that's where up and coming actors got their opportunity.
Mhm.
And so now most A-list actors are also producing their own TV content because they make more money than being in a movie.
Well, and I think too, I mean, I've owned media companies for over 40 years, and I'll tell you, like, what shifted there is the same way is, they used to pay supermodels to be on the cover of Vogue. Now
Yeah.
they put celebrities on the cover for free to promote their movie, so
Yeah.
it's like, and then now you're seeing the pay to play model that is making a really big splash in the industry, which people don't even realize is a thing, where people are paying to get featured on content in certain areas.
Mhm.
Um, because they're creating their own like platforms and things like that. And so, but the audience has no idea these things are happening. The same way if you're watching a movie, there's a company that paid for that actor to drink a Coca-Cola in the
Mhm.
movie, and it's called product placement. And you don't even realize it's happening. So I
Yeah.
feel
So
like that as creators, we have that responsibility to make sure that we're protecting the audience from those things if we're not aligned with the message of those products or companies.
Well, we have to, and so to really answer your question, is creating your own opportunities.
Yep.
And that is, when I was an actor, I treated it like a business. This is my company. And so I have to find those acting opportunities. And so now creating content, getting out there. I stay in my lane. That is, I am not a social media influencer. I never want to be, and I never will be. I
Oh,
get
yeah.
that.
And I would say you can't deposit social media followers in your bank account, and this is the
100%.
thing. There's so many influencers that have millions of followers that are broke.
Yeah.
They have no income. And now that the fees are starting to get lower and lower on, the
Hmm.
monetization platforms like YouTube and stuff, it's getting harder for people to make money from that. And, you see all these people that know what they want to do, but they don't know where to start. So what's the difference between somebody who says they want to follow their passion, like what you and I are doing, and somebody who actually does it? What's the big difference between the people who do it and don't do it?
That is, you want to get number one, taking action, because that's where people get stuck. It's never going to be perfect. It never is going. For us, it was so many obstacles. Every obstacle came our way. We found a way to get past it. And so once we got past it, then it presented a new challenge, which made us better. And those challenges made us more resilient. So what ended up happening was now we're thinking even bigger, right? Okay, we're able to get through this part. So you want to be hit with challenges. You want to be hit with all these failures. You want all the no's to come your way because that's proving to the universe or God, whatever you believe in, you really want this thing, right? And so taking action is the first step. Got to take that action. And then once you have action, then it's going to be okay, what content, if you're a creator, resonates with me, not what I think is going to sell. And that's where people get really caught in the weeds. I see this all the time. It's not what you think the audience wants because their taste can change on a dime. It's what you think is going to really resonate with your audience. And people are attracted to passion in other people.
Oh, yeah. And consumers are very fickle. And so I
Yeah.
learned about that connection from Oprah, and I use this and I teach this to our clients too every day is when you are speaking on a show or you're, writing a book or you're speaking on a stage or you're, going to be in a big project, you want to ask yourself, what do you want that audience to do, feel, or think when they see this? What's
Yeah.
your intention? And when you start from that intention, she used to do that with every TV show. She would talk about it with her producers and they would create the intention and then work backwards from that intention to create that episode. And that was such a huge aha moment for me when she said that years and years ago. And I've always used that for my own magazines, all of our projects that we've done, every book I've ever written. And when you have that intention, that's what creates that connection with the audience because you can't really manufacture it. You have to create it from the beginning of the project. And I
Yeah.
think that's the same with people going on auditions. What's your intention? Obviously, you want to get the role, but what do you want that audience to, is it, what do you want them to feel before,
Hmm.
when they're watching this? So
Yeah.
let's be honest, following your passion, it sounds great, but where does it actually go wrong for people?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a great question. I think it goes wrong for people. And the thing is that understand the chances of it happening are stacked against you. It just is. When I came to terms with that, where I said this could fail epically, but it's not going to fail. You know why? It's just going to change into something else. That's what it's going to be. Because the market's going to tell me what I'm doing is not working. People see that as rejection. No, it's the market telling you do something else. And if you take it that way versus, oh my God, I failed, you know what? It's a learning tool. The market's always telling us something, saying, guess what? This resonated, this did not. So we don't look at it as, oh my God, this is horrible. No, it's like, okay, we know what we got to do. We got to make it better. We got to change. So let the market tell you what's working and what's not working.
And I think also knowing that the universe has a way of auto correcting.
Yeah.
So when you
Yeah.
don't get one part, as an actor especially, it means there's another open door for something else that you wouldn't have gotten if you'd said yes to that project. So it's the same in business as well.
Yeah.
So what's the lie that people believe about success that keeps them stuck?
Oh, wow.
But you're also a leadership. You teach a lot about leadership in the corporate space
Yeah.
as well. So that's where that
I
question's.
think I think that it's a straight line. It's never a straight line. And that also there is no timeline to it. I think that's the lesson I've been learning still, which is there's no timeline to this thing. You hear about these people that, just caught lightning in a bottle. That's the one percenters. I get it. It does happen. However, the majority of us are going to experience a slow burn. Now, you will be rewarded if your passion follows your actions, right? So most people are very passionate about something, but this weekend, perfect example. I don't have the kids this week. Guess what I did? I stayed in my office and worked the entire weekend. And guess what? I'm loving what I do, so it wasn't work. I enjoyed every minute of it. I'm good, right? And that's where passion is great to have because then it doesn't feel like work, but it also means it's all on you. So whatever results I put in, those are the results I'm going to get out. And
Yeah, and
that's the
that's
beauty of
where
entrepreneurship, which is it's all on you, both good and bad. Good in the sense that you put so much effort and energy into this one thing, you'll get those results back. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it.
well, and that makes success a choice, which is what makes you actually
Mhm.
feel empowered. Because you have to be, it actually requires you to do things that other people aren't willing to do. Like you said, work
Yeah.
all weekend instead of going out with friends. Like there's a discipline, but there's also an output.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Sanjay, if somebody is watching or listening to this and they're feeling stuck in a life they don't want, they're you back in
Yeah.
2018,
Yeah.
what's the first move they need to make this week?
Having self-awareness to understand what is it that motivates them. Is it your family that motivates you? Is it is it money that motivates you? There's no wrong answer to this. What motivated me was I want to spend as much time as I can with these kids as possible, but I wanted to do it doing things that I love to do, which is I love to travel. I love to cook. I love to do these things. And there's an avenue in this economy to get there now. All you need is a cell phone for the most part for a lot of stuff nowadays, right? So just having self awareness, once I was aware, this is what I want to do. Okay, now you know what you want to do. Instead of trying a million things and going, let's see what sticks, just sit down and think about what do I want to do? Once you have the self-awareness, the roadmap actually opens itself up to you every single time. And I think people don't have that conversation with themselves. A perfect example was the kids came back. They said, "Oh, the counselor is asking." They're in ninth grade. The counselor is asking us what we want to do, and we have to have an idea. I said, "What's your answer?" They're like, "We don't know." I said, "That's right. You don't know. You have no clue what you want to do." So if they're asking for an answer, I want to be a doctor, or lawyer. Tell them to call me, and I'll tell them that's they should have no idea what they want to do. Try everything. When you're young, take as many risks as possible. That's what I did. You can afford to do it. Take as many of those risks. And then you weed out the stuff you don't want to do. And you're like, oh, I like this. I like this. Let's see what I can do here. And then you can start building towards that.
And, you know, if you trust your gut and you align with the your soul and that part of you that's like wiser than you, that's saying yes and no to
Mhm.
certain things, and you really tap into that, I think it'll kind of guide you along your path of what your purpose is meant to be. Because I really do feel like your soul is tied into your purpose a lot. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
knows, but we just kind of don't pay attention to it, right? So I know we've shared so much information here, just your journey, what you've had to overcome,
Hmm.
your own belief systems, to the success and everything that you're having. And congratulations on just everything. I'm just so proud of you. And I've watched you personally grow in your career and as a father and as a business person, as a speaker in so many different ways. Like you went and just did the work. You worked so hard. You put your head down. You didn't care what people thought. And look at where you're at now. So
Well, I didn't get there alone. You had a large hand in it. The universe fated us to beat. So I always give credit where credit's due, and then we all
thank,
rise together. So yeah, absolutely.
thank you. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience today that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, it is. I think about today, and that is how many people are afraid to go after what they want to go after. So the term is most people live a life of quiet desperation, right? So when you think about this, there's two things I think about. Number one, which is the odds are in your favor because most people won't go after it. So the odds are in your favor, number one. And number two, Mark Cuban said something that has always stuck with me, which is he said, all you need in your life is one good idea that could set you up for the rest of your life, right? That
Yeah.
stuck with me every single day. And he said, think about that. One good idea will take you as far as you want to go, but most people are not even willing to go after that one good idea. Not 10, just
Right.
one.
Well, or they have so many good ones that they get ADHD about it, like me. But it's true. We talk about the power of one in our company, the why you should write one book to solve a problem for one type of audience, and then you put it on one platform and not millions of things. Like it's just overwhelming
Yeah.
trying to be everything to everybody. But I think of Jimmy
Yeah.
Buffett. Okay. He recently passed away and he was worth
Mhm.
$1 billion. And
Yeah.
he was known for what? One song.
One song. Yeah.
Margaritaville. In fact, when I
Yeah.
was down there filming with you, I drove by Margaritaville
Yep.
in Florida, and I was just like they're everywhere. And so
Yeah.
he was able to take that one song, that one idea, just one word even, and
Mhm.
monetize it in such a big way and build a brand that's all about fun and travel and he really embodied that and lived that and loved to have fun with people. So I think that you could take the essence of who you are and you could create that brand on a global stage, and you don't have to try to do everything and be everything. And so many people get caught up in trying to be like Tony Robbins or try to be like Oprah
Yeah.
or try to be like this person or this guru instead of just being 100% themselves.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so, and Sanjay, I know that people are going to want to watch the show. They're going to, follow what you're
Yeah.
doing. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you or follow you, or what's the next step
Yeah.
for people?
So our website is called myrecipeforwellness.com. Tells you about the latest things with the show. Our podcast is on there. Some of the new content we're launching off of it as well. If they want to be part of the show, there's an application process they can apply through there. So there's so many different ways to get in touch through it. With that, social media, our YouTube channel we're building out. But right now on PBS, they're rerunning episodes of season one of the show, which is great. Season two, I just got off the phone with PBS today. We're looking at a June launch for season two, which is exciting. And then our streaming partners are going to be launching season one anytime now. We're just waiting for our dates. So we're going to be able to see on all the major streaming channels. And then we also found out in Q4 of this year that we've got new broadcast partners with ABC, NBC, CBS affiliates who are going to broadcast the show. That was a big win we never thought we were going to
That
get.
is huge because initially those are the networks that are saying we're only going to run this content if you do what we say, and
Yeah.
you use these big people,
Yeah.
that we didn't want to align with. So now the fact that we went back and kind of did it on our own terms
Yeah.
and are now giving them the content to put on their network. I love that full circle. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah. No, it was just I can't thank enough our team, you, Michael, everybody, because it was just like seeing it through. Anybody could have said at any given time, you or Michael could have said, you know what, this is just too much. I got to do my own thing. But you saw
Yeah.
the vision, and now we want to make sure that we reward the people that followed us, that stuck with us, to see this thing grow into this whole new thing.
Mhm.
And yeah, so we're hitting other platforms, and we just spoke to another big platform that wants our content. So just so many things are coming our way in the most
And there's a
positive manner.
podcast. We have a podcast for Recipe for Wellness. So you can
Yeah, so
also
Recipe for
listen to
Wellness is
that
in its
podcast as well.
third season of the podcast. And when we started this thing, we wanted to give more opportunities for our guests to get their message out there. And we found out that the podcast got picked up on streaming channel. So that's going to be shown on streaming channel in Q4 as well now. So which
That
is
is
awesome.
so exciting. Congratulations on all your success. I'm just so proud of you. Like I said, I'm just so honored to be, able to partner with you on some of these projects. And, if any of this resonates with you guys watching or listening, just know that if you think that you're out there looking for people to help you, those people are literally out there looking for you, right?
Yeah.
These platforms exist every day. There's no scarcity in this industry. There's no shortage of funding or money for really good content. And what dictates that is what the people want. People will vote with their dollar, whether they're buying your product or whether they're watching your
Hmm.
show or listening to your podcast. So I just want to thank all of you for listening to our show, for supporting it,
Yeah.
for subscribing and hitting that subscribe button so that we can continue
Yeah.
to make this content and make it free for you to have access to it as well. I want to thank Sanjay for all of your commitments. And before we wrap up this episode, I want to do one of my favorite parts is sharing a story from a mystery guest
Okay.
that aligns with what we're talking about here today. So
Awesome.
this particular guest was already a highly accomplished heart surgeon. And on paper, he had already made it. He was top of his
Mm.
field. He had a prestigious
Okay.
career. He was saving lives. But here's what most people don't know. When he first started exploring being featured in the media and sharing health information beyond the operating room, his peers criticized him. So other doctors thought it was cheesy. They questioned his credibility. They warned him that he was risking his reputation because at that level, this was years ago, doctors didn't go on TV. They were in the operating room. They stayed in their lane. In fact, the only doctors on TV were actually doctors that were like actors playing on soap operas, right? And so stepping outside of that lane, it didn't
Yeah.
look like ambition, it looked like career suicide. And they all said, you're making a big mistake. And there was this early appearances that he started to do that weren't really resonating. They weren't landing. There were moments where he had to learn how to communicate because he was going out and talking like a surgeon.
Mm.
And it was like, you know, he was using this medical ease because he thought he had to talk that way to be credible as an expert. And the audience wasn't, it just wasn't resonating. And then he
Mm.
had this amazing experience, this defining moment where he realized when he just goes out and starts telling stories, he became a storyteller. And that gave him an opportunity to heal the world. There were moments where he had to decide specifically, do I stay as a respected surgeon and be quiet, or do I expand my impact? Because
Mm.
what he was really risking, it wasn't about failure, it was judgment from the world. It was like losing the identity that he had spent his entire life building. His whole
Yeah.
life as a doctor was building credibility so people would listen to him and do what he told them to do. But he
Mm.
made a decision not from fear, but from vision. And that decision eventually led him to a platform that changed everything. He had a small segment, he had guest appearances. He started paying publicists like six figures to start getting him on different platforms. And pretty soon he got to be known as the go to expert in his space, as a credible expert, as a doctor and a surgeon. He started doing local segments in Chicago. He started doing guest appearances on different news stations. And then he had an opportunity that turned into something much bigger. He got a call from Oprah Winfrey's producers, and she
Mm.
gave him the opportunity to go on her show and do this small little segment because they were both in Chicago. She found him
Mm.
to be charming and credible, and that was the defining moments of Dr. Mehmet Oz.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just a
Yeah.
surgeon, but became a
Mm.
voice for the world.
Hmm.
Now, his net worth is estimated as high as $500 million. He is one of the top five experts, wealthiest doctors in the world.
Hmm.
And we know this net worth because he ran for Congress recently. And so this is the true value of getting your voice out there. And if you're an expert in your space, you know, think about it. If you're a doctor or if you're a dentist or you're an insurance person and you're an expert or a realtor where there's thousands of realtors in a market, how many of them have actually written a book? How many of them are actually on the news? How many of them have actually become speaking, you know, speakers, professional speakers in their industry? So the thing is, Dr. Oz was already an expert before he went on Oprah. The same with Dr. Phil and some of these people you've known to love. What
Yeah.
sets them apart from all the other experts out there is their willingness to get their voice heard, to go make mistakes and recalibrate and keep tweaking things until now their voice becomes the known voice in the industry. And it's
Hmm.
exactly what Sanjay did, the same path you took, the same path I took. And what I find so interesting about this, it's not that Dr. Oz didn't have success before. It's that he had to be willing to outgrow the version of success that he had already built, that he thought this is the top.
Yeah.
And Sanjay, when you hear that, what does that bring up for you in your own journey?
I mean, it was playing small. Yeah. I didn't think that I had a big enough voice to really make an impact. And so once I realized, okay, this message that I've got inside of me does resonate with people, but moreover, I had to go through a lot of negative stuff in order to realize there's nothing to lose at this point. There's just nothing to lose, right? And if people don't resonate, it doesn't resonate, but I got it out there. And so once I made that transition and then started seeing the empirical data that, yeah, there's a market for all this and I can do what I love and there's no fear of rejection because our fear of rejection comes internally. Everybody else's opinion means nothing at all. And so once I was able to get past all that, all these doors opened up. And I'm still shocked today. Every single time we get a call, we get an inquiry of a network or somebody saying, hey, we love your content. Come bring it over to us. It just further solidifies that our passion resonates with so many people. And I hope that people can take away from this is that whatever your message may be, somebody wants to hear it. And we get stuck in our own little world where it's just like, oh, nobody wants to hear this. No, somebody needs to hear it.
Absolutely. And in your world of health and wellness, it could mean the difference between life or death for people. There is an urgency to get this knowledge out in the world. And
Yeah.
so the whole theme of today, I believe, is really what has evolved is that sometimes what looks like failure is life forcing you to stop playing small and to remember
Yeah.
to use your voice and your knowledge for good, use those superpowers for good, and to understand too on a bigger scale that sometimes, and I like to say, God's rejection or man's rejection is God's protection. And
Mm.
things always work out where, God, the universe is always working out in our favor. We just can't always see it moving forward. But when we look backwards on our life,
Yeah.
we can connect the dots and see that protection has put us right exactly where we need to be. So Sanjay, thank you so much for being here today. And for all of you for sticking with us and watching this episode, for sharing it. I hope this has resonated with you. And if you would like to know more information about defining moments or the TV show Recipe for Wellness or working with Sanjay and I, please click on the links
Mhm.
below in the show notes. We cannot wait to see what this has inspired and unleashed in all of you, what you're going to do with all of this and how you're going to create. So keep us posted on your results and what this helped give birth to today. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Sanjay. And
Thank you.
more fun to come. We'll see you guys next time. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Defining Moments podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.